our website. And so you'll be able to go to the Alive and Well website, and you'll be able to find this recording on the website. Micah, what's the link that people click on? It's the Cultural Competency Collective. Is that correct?
Yep, you can go to culturalcompetencycollective.org or culturalcollectivekc.org, and then I'll drop the links in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Micah. So this recording, if you want to share it with others, feel free to send them to that link. We're going to also drop in the link at the beginning of our meeting, the registration for the June 15th learning experience. I think the date is June 15th. So we're going to drop in the link in the chat feed, a link for you to pre-register for that upcoming learning experience. So thank you all so much for joining us. Our guest with us on this morning is Stacey Davis with Mental Health America of the Heartland. And Stacey and I go way back. And so I just thought, what great organization to have with us today as we talk about mental health, because mental health matters, and mental health is health. And so you're going to hear that theme resonate when we talk on today. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up our PowerPoint here to guide our presentation. So I'll get that up here on the screen. And I have some discussion questions that I need you to help me with. So before we do that, let's go ahead and get up our slide deck. Perfect. So I am Jermaine Alberty. I am the interim deputy director with Alive and Well Communities, also the executive director of Pathways to Promise, which is an interfaith cooperative. And also I lead the companionship movement, and have family with lived experience with mental illness. My youngest son attempted suicide when he was 17 years old. He'll be 24 in June. And part of his experience I wrote about in the book called Bottled Up Inside African-American Teens and Depression. And so this subject is near and dear to me. I'm also a national trainer for a program called Mental Health First Aid. For the past 14 years, have done that work around the country to reduce stigma and increase mental health literacy. And so I'm really excited about this subject matter because it is near and dear to my heart. A colleague, Stacey Davis, has joined us also, and Stacey is the director of mental health promotions at Mental Health America, the Heartland. And you can see her brief bio here. When Stacey does her presentation, I will ask her to share with you what she wants you to know most about her. I think bios can just go on and on and on and on, but Stacey and I worked together when, oh my goodness, that was years ago on a program that was called Sabbaths of Hope. Remember that, Stacey? Sabbaths of Hope?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was really generating awareness in faith communities about depression and mental health. And we actually worked with them to create a Sabbaths of Hope weekend where they were able to promote mental health. And so we go back with the Sabbaths of Hope work there. I'm going to point out why we should be having this conversation. Some of you all, this may be common knowledge, but even before the pandemic, 50 million folks in the US in any given year had a mental health diagnosis or a mental health challenge. And what we know is that not only has mental health challenges increased in our country, but also substance use for youth and adults have increased also. So prior to the pandemic, about 7.74% of US adults and about 4% of youth had a substance use disorder in the past year. And so what we know is that mental health challenges and addiction challenges often occur with one another. And people often say, well, what came first? And many times it is that whole chicken and egg where it doesn't really matter what came first. What matters is how we respond to those who are challenged. And what we know is that substance use has increased over 0.7% for adults, 0.2% for youth over the last year. So this is why we need to have this discussion, not because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but simply because I was at a workshop last week in Indiana, speaking for the Luther Foundation, And the speaker pointed out that research is showing now that not just 1 out of 5 of US adults will have a mental health challenge within their lifetime, but 4 out of 5 eventually within their lives could experience a mental health diagnosis or challenge. And so I want to start off by really kind of anchoring to hear from you. What are our beliefs about persons with mental illness and where do they come from? So what are some of the things that you hear out there about persons with mental illness and where do those beliefs come from? Feel free to unmute yourself, feel free to raise your hand and just share with me. So where does those beliefs come from as it relates to mental illness, and what are some of those beliefs? I want to spend about the first 15 minutes of our time together, just laying a foundation, and then Stacey will present and I'll come back and wrap us up. So that's going to be our hour together. So somebody talk to me. So the question just for you that are like visuals, like where did it go to? Here it goes again. What are our beliefs about persons with mental illness and where do they come from? So that's really the question that I'm asking. Anybody want to share with me?
I think if I think about the message I grew up with, it was that they are less than, and that you whisper it because you don't want to embarrass people by talking about someone's problem.
Yeah, so you whisper about these things because you don't want to embarrass people. You don't want to talk about, yeah.
Or it's to hide your own, it was to hide my own family's anxiety. Not feeling comfortable with it. It's not about the other person. It's about people in my family.
Wow. And then Sarita said weak is also like the beliefs and also passed through generations. I just put in the chat, that question also. So once again, what are our beliefs about persons with mental illness and where do they come from is the question. So what those are kind of wondering what we're talking about here. So I'm hearing from David that sometimes our beliefs are really more about our own perception about that and kind of how not only our own perception about mental illness, but how it's portrayed to the public about ourselves. Anybody else? Where do our beliefs about mental illness come from? What are some beliefs?
I think that it actually comes from sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, yeah. I think, some of it comes from the laws and how that's been treated in this country. So I feel like, my generation, like Generation X, there was still a lot of shame around mental health. And I think it's because, in the, 1980s, we really did a big, in both positive and negative ways, big change within this country on how mental health is dealt with. So on one hand, the positive, we're no longer just going to lock everyone away, but the negative, we're not going to actually provide any services. So therefore, people don't know, can't get the help that they need. And so I think there's still a lot of shame of not knowing how to get through that system. And then just, again, going back to that idea of weakness of if I ask for help, then that means I'm weak. And I think that's a very American white privilege type concept that we've all just had instilled in us in all of the laws that exist.
So thank you, Courtney. So what happened in many ways is we just switched systems. We went from persons moving out of institutions where they were psychiatric institutions, from that institution to the prison institution. We literally switched institutions because the prison system is the largest provider of mental health care in the country and don't do a great job at it. And so literally we just switched institutions because people with mental health challenges, it became criminalized, different things like trespassing and vagrancy and other crimes that people get arrested for. And so literally people were switched from one institution to another institution. And we have to do a better job at providing that care for persons who are experiencing mental health challenges, because the reality is that we all, at one point in our life, have been challenged with our mental well-being. And the difference may have simply been just the fact that we had different supports in place that were able to help us when we challenged, or we had different coping skills in place that helped us when we were challenged. But there are many factors that we'll learn that contribute to one developing a mental illness. So I see in the chat feed that our beliefs come from our culture as well as society. The media portrays people with mental illness as violent and dangerous to society. And all those perceptions are rooted in stigma. And stigma, I like to describe, it's like a stigmatism. It blurs our vision. It blurs how we see the other person. And it makes the person other, So let's go ahead. Thank y'all for participating in that right there. Once again, just trying to lay the foundation, because the great thing about Stacy is that she works for Mental Health America, and they are doing that hard work, providing education, also providing advocacy. And so they're doing that work there. And so what I would love to do now is this. I would love for us just to kind of give some, if you would, some definitions to some of these terms here. So let me go ahead and pull up our PowerPoint again here. And let's talk about the fact that really just stating this one fact, mental health is the beginning of debunking stigma. Mental health is not separate and apart from our well-being. Mental health is health. And so that right there is the beginning of debunking that, because as you all said, the myth is that personality weakness or character flaws cause mental health challenges or problems. And what we know is that it is a myth that people with mental health challenges or problems can just snap out of it if they try hard enough. And so we want to debunk that myth. And the reason why I'm using the word problem and challenge is because I don't like the term problem, because it tends to give the appearance that we have to fix the person. I like the term challenge more because the word challenge implies that it's something that can be overcome. And I think about overcoming challenges. I think about fixing problems. And so what we know is that the factors that contribute to mental health challenges are things like biological factors, life experience, family history. And what we know is the truth is that people with mental health problems can get better. Repeat that, can get better. And many recover completely. With the proper treatments, you can live a fulfilling life. And that journey of recovery is different for all people. And so what we know is all these different areas here are things that can bring about trauma, and not only bring about trauma, but also these things, we know that trauma is a primary risk factor when it comes to the development of mental health challenges or illnesses. So imagine the impact, the individual trauma, the community trauma, the historical trauma that plays a role in developing mental health challenges or mental illnesses. And I use the term mental health challenge and mental illness interchangeably, because all of us can experience some kind of mental health challenge, but a mental illness requires a diagnosis. And that diagnosis often looks upon how long a person has experienced certain symptoms, the impact of the symptoms on their life, their ability to function. So typically, most clinicians are looking for the impairment of the symptoms on the life of the individual. And so that's the myth here. The myth is that there's no hope for people with mental health challenges. And once a friend or a family member develops a mental health problem or challenge, they will never recover. And what we know is that recovery is possible. Recovery is possible. And what we know is that recovery is a combination of both treatment, services, community support systems, and those things in place help people on their journey of recovery. And that's important. And so what's really important to know is that you can play a role in that. Oftentimes though, people want to help, but they don't know how to help. They don't know who to refer a person to. And that's why I asked my friend Stacy to join us today to talk about Mental Health America, that has a litany of programs that serve both the Kansas and Missouri side, and that you can have access to. So I wanted to use this learning experience as an opportunity for you to be able to say, if you want to support somebody in their recovery, here's a resource. So Stacy, I'm going to turn the floor over to you so that you can share with persons about Mental Health America and the work that you all do. And by the way, you're muted, Stacy. There we go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here. As Jermaine said, my name is Stacy Davis, and I'm the Director of Mental Health Promotion for Mental Health America of the Heartland. I'm going to talk to you about where you can go in our community to get some help, to find the resources that you need, and to talk further about recovery. Our organization mission is to promote the mental health of the community and improve the quality of life for persons with mental illness. We do this through advocacy, education, and support. We are a source of hope for people with mental illness. We work with social service providers, community organizations, and the public to destigmatize mental health issues. We are connectors and advocates, providing links to services for those living with mental illness. We ensure persons with mental illness have full access to psychiatric care and the social support systems for recovery. So when we talk about mental health, we've tried to bring mental health because mental health impacts everyone, regardless of whether you have a diagnosis or not. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And one of my favorite definitions of mental health is it's a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So what we do is we bring mental health home to everyone, and we
Stacey.
focus on some of the good characteristics of good mental health.
Stacy,
For
sorry
example,
to interrupt you. I think you're trying to share your PowerPoint screen and we're not seeing it. Just wanted to clarify that for you. It might be a different monitor screen to share.
You can see it now. Yeah.
So what are some of the characteristics of good mental health? Do you feel good about yourself? Do you take pleasure in everyday things? Do you deal with most situations and not usually overwhelmed by emotions? Do you take life's disappointments in stride? Do you have a tolerant attitude toward yourself as well as others? Are you realistic about your abilities? Do you accept your shortcomings and laugh at yourself? Do you feel comfortable with other people? Do you love and consider the interests of others? Do you have personal relationships that are satisfying and lasting? Do you trust others and feel that they can trust you? Do you not take advantage of others, nor do you let others take advantage of you? Do you feel a sense of responsibility to others? And finally, are you able to meet life's demands? Do you address problems as they arise? Do you accept responsibilities, shape your environment when possible, and adjust to life's challenges? Do you plan ahead and do not fear the future? Do you welcome new experiences and set realistic goals for yourself? Because all of this can impact our mental health. We know that 1 in 5 Americans will experience mental health needs every year, but only half seek help. Enough treatment when recovery is possible. So, our goal as an organization is to help people in recovery, and we can do that in a variety of ways, because we know that recovery rates are as high as 80%. We know that some fast facts that 1 in 12 teens attempt suicide at some point in their young lives, and that mental health diagnoses are the second leading cause of disability in the US. Just to give you a little bit of history about our organization, we were started by a gentleman by the name of Clifford Beers, who was a psychiatric patient at an institution. And he knew firsthand what it was like to have a mental illness. And when they closed the institutions in the 1950s, they took all the shackles of the institution and melted them into what we call our symbol, the bell. And this is the story of the bell. Since 1920, MHAs have been active in Kansas City. And in 1996, we consolidated to form Mental Health Association of the Heartland. Today, we're a bi-state organization with a new name and a forward-looking logo, Mental Health America of the Heartland. We have a budget of just over $1 billion. We serve predominantly 8 metro counties in Jackson, Johnson, Wyandotte, Leavenworth, Clay, Platte, Ray, and Cass, plus statewide contracts to improve services in both Kansas and Missouri. We service over 20,000 persons annually. And these are people from all walks of life, professionals like mental health professionals, psychiatrists, therapists, social workers, nurses, police officers, administrators, teachers, any person that's impacted by mental health. So we have 3 programs. Our first program is mental health promotion, and I oversee this program. And what we offer is Zoom webinars, workshops, seminars, and trainings. We have a large listserv where we notify people of upcoming webinars that are offered not only in Kansas, Missouri, but across the country. And they include topics like grief and loss. We have an upcoming webinar on understanding Social Security disability, or diagnosis and treatment of personality disorders, or cultural diversity, or self-care. All of these workshops include topics that are approved by the Kansas Behavioral Board for continuing education. We also have a speakers bureau where we have people that have experienced mental illness share their stories throughout the community. We also have information referral. A lot of times people don't know where to connect with resources in the community. They don't know where to go into the community. So we can help with a mental health line. We also have health fairs and literature and a website where people can access resources. And we also have media response and public education response to certain crises that happen in the community. We can respond to the media. In our Child and Youth Mental Health Initiative program, we offer suicide prevention workshops to school staff, students, parents, and caregivers. This includes our program, Adolescents Never Suicide When Everyone Responds, and also QPR, like Question, Persuade, Refer, our some of the suicide prevention workshops that we offer. We also offer workshops on disorders, not bad behaviors, to parents that talk about some of the mental health issues in children in adolescents. We also offer workshops on helping parents help youth, helping parents recognize anxiety and depression in their children and strategies on how to cope. We also have received a recent SAMHSA grant to go into the schools and talk to K through first grade through third grade teachers and parents on PAX tools. And PAX tools is Latin for peace, which represents productivity, health, and happiness. It's an evidence-based trauma-informed strategy to improve cooperation and self-regulation with youth. These support parents and caregivers to create a nurturing environment that helps kids thrive. Teachers are also taught the PAX Good Behavior Game, which is an intervention used to teach self-regulation. It's not a curriculum, but a set of strategies teachers use throughout their day to build students' behavior skills and stamina for focused attention and on-task behavior. Another program that we offer is advocacy and recovery services. We have the longest running warm line service in the country. It's called Compassionate Ear, and it's 1-866-927-6327 or 913-281-2251. And it's answered from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this is where someone can call and get someone on the other line who's a peer that can help them with their struggles and also connect them with resources. We also have individual case advocacy. A lot of times people slip through the cracks and they're not able to get the services that they need. We work with those individuals to make sure that they're connected with the right resources. We hire our wellness and support advocates, which we call WASAs, which are certified peer support specialists. And these are people with lived experience of mental illness and we partner with other organizations and provide support to those individuals in those organizations that are suffering from mental illness. If you're interested in more information, you can contact April Jackson, who's the Director of Advocacy and Recovery Services at our organization. We also have a Heartland Housing Initiative, which is the permanent supportive housing for homeless veterans, families, and persons with mental illness. And we have this housing in Kansas City, Ottawa, Manhattan, Emporia, Leavenworth, and Kansas City. These are forever homes for people that have been homeless their entire life. We're also involved in legislative and system advocacy, working to preserve rights, expand services, and promote recovery for individuals with mental illness. We both serve both sides of the state, both on the Kansas and Missouri side, Jefferson City, Topeka, and also Washington, D.C. So here's my contact information if you're interested in knowing more about our services and our programs. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Stacey, I want to thank you so much for sharing all the great work that Mental Health America does. And I think so many times, a lot of folks just, they don't know what they have in the community at large as resources. So they tend to not be able to extend help to others by saying, maybe call this organization or check in there. I'm really excited about the Warm Line, because sometimes people just want somebody to talk to be able to express what's going on and what they are experiencing. So to have somebody who has lived experience able to person that line and be able to come to that person's aid, to me is just phenomenal. And so I'm really grateful for the work that Mental Health America does. Stacy opened up and asked if the group had any questions about what Mental Health America does. And so I would love to invite you all to pose any questions via the chat, or if you don't have a question via chat, feel free to unmute yourself. But are there any questions about Mental Health America? Can I get a thumbs up if y'all already knew about Mental Health America? How many of y'all already knew about Mental Health America? A thumbs up. So Whitney, thank you. Laura, Sarah, Susan, great. Okay. So I have at least 5. Oh, you're well known, Stacy. Your group is well known. I see a lot of thumbs up there. That's great. But also, I don't see some thumbs, which means that we did increase awareness about the organization and some supports that can be offered there. So let me go ahead and let me continue our conversation. Hopefully you all can see my PowerPoint slide here. And let's talk about you encounter somebody who has a mental health challenge. All right, so the question becomes, what do you do? What do you do? You've encountered somebody who has a mental health challenge. What do you do there? You want to, first of all, show your support. That could be the most important thing. One of the things that my son and I talk about is how people who have mental health challenges are somehow viewed as weak, or somehow viewed as persons who are the problem. And we want to make sure that we start that conversation off by showing our support, asking how we can help. So we want to make sure we avoid making assumptions. So how can I help you? And then be open-minded and hear what the person actually is saying. The other thing is, don't just talk about mental health, right? If you lead off by saying, well, I noticed lately you have been acting weird. What does that mean that I've been acting weird? You've been acting off. What does that mean I've been acting off? You haven't just been like yourself, you know? And as a family member with someone with lived experience, in the back of our minds, we just want them to be like they used to be. But how many of y'all have ever known somebody who had a stroke, and although they recovered from the stroke, there was some residual effect from that stroke? And that's the same with mental health challenges. It's that although we do recover, and Stacy pointed out, 80% of persons recover from mental health illnesses and challenges, there's still some residual effects. So hoping the person gets back to how they used to be, or back to, air quotes, normal, we want to make sure we avoid just talking about mental health. And that what we do is that we show trust and respect to that individual, that we honor their dignity, that we honor their agency. That's part of showing trust and respect. But the other thing is, make sure that you take care of yourself too, because sometimes we can become so intertwined and so engaged that we neglect our own self-care in the process. And how many of you know, as a caregiver, you can become sick providing care to someone else, because you become so stressed out, so overwhelmed that you neglect eating, sleeping, and everything else. So be patient with the person and be patient with yourself. Show a little grace to the person, show a little grace to yourself. And that's why self-care is so important for you and the person that you're trying to help. That's why knowing about Mental Health America is really important, because you know what treatment options are available. This is why the work that our community mental health centers do in Jackson County, Johnson County, Clay County, our mental health centers that we have in Missouri and Kansas are important, as well as our federally qualified health centers, as well as those private providers, knowing who provides treatment on a sliding scale. All those things are important to know when helping someone else or helping yourself. What are the options? But I really want you all to just like have a mantra, those 3 words: recovery is possible. It's different for all people, but it is possible. It's a step by step. And I describe recovery as a roller coaster ride, because sometimes it's like you're on that ride and you're like, woo, and you're enjoying life. And a dip happens, you're like, why did I get on this ride? Why am I on this ride? And there are dips, and there are high points, and there's low points in that journey of recovery, but it's possible. And One of the things I love that Mental Health America does is through their peer support program is allowing persons with lived experience by way of becoming certified peer specialists, provide support to those who are also living with mental health challenges. Peer support is so very important. And so these are things that you can do to help yourself as well as help someone else. The other thing is that, you know, when you're looking after someone else, also take care of your well-being. So talk about the way you feel, identify your triggers or things that precipitate in you. Those are two very important things that we should start doing this month and every day after. I just did a workshop in Indiana that I titled EPS Check, which stands for Emotional, Physical, and Spiritual Checkup. And the question I got asked, I did 2 workshops. I got asked this question at both workshops. How many times do we do an EPS checkup? I said daily. Daily checking on your emotions. How are you feeling today? Daily checking on your physical health. How am I feeling today? Check in on your spiritual well-being, whether that is in a religious sense or just your spiritual well-being. How does my soul feel? How do I feel with regards to just how I'm connecting with others? How does that feel? So I asked this question, and I want to ask you this question, and feel free to put it in the chat feed or unmute, but it's a serious question. What do you do for fun? I need to know. I need some tips because I don't know how to have fun sometimes. So what do you do for fun? Somebody tell me. Nobody has fun?
Let me preface it. When I was really struggling with my mental health, one of the things that I had to work through was I had stuffed those feelings of those emotions along. I didn't know how to name them. Mm-hmm. Negative ones or positive ones. I didn't know what they were, and I didn't know then how to connect them with what behaviors generated them. I just knew they were balled up inside. So part of it is one of my mantras during my work was I got to name it to claim it. And that once I started to say, I feel angry. Well, where's that in my body and what is triggering that, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's a process for all of us, regardless of where we are on that well-being spectrum. I think now I can start to say, oh, I'm feeling joy. What's going on? Right. And that the ability to connect that is to what brings me joy is different now that I'm starting to cultivate that awareness.
David, thank you so much for sharing. You know, I, during the pandemic, most definitely myself started seeing a wellness coach, therapist to work through all those different things that I was experiencing as a result of being isolated. Because I was always on the road, always training, and then I was stuck in the house, like many of us experienced. It was like, oh, get me out of here. So being able to name it is so important. And the group, y'all got on fire in the chat feed, walking outside, watching TV, swimming, writing, concerts, hanging out with friends, something creative, dancing, okay, dancing, going out with friends and family, camping, concerts, live music, hiking, hanging out with friends. Kathy has the most favorite one of mine, playing with her grandson. My granddaughter is my joy. She's a year and 5 months old. She brings me joy, great joy, great joy. Also friends, time spent outside, going for a drive. I like getting lost sometimes, as long as I have gas. I like getting lost driving around. Like, I didn't know that was there. It's kind of fun, right? Road trips, watching TV, community friends. So y'all have really shown me that you know how to have fun and that you can do things that really enjoy life. And I think so many times we get so busy in our work that we forget to do just that one thing, and that is to try to enjoy life, right? And so find that time to relax. I think it's also important to create your own action plan, your wellness action plan. that lines up with how will you maintain physical wellness? How would you maintain emotional wellness? What can you do? And notice here, think about what helps you. So as David pointed out, like being able to name those feelings. So think about what helps you if you start feeling overwhelmed. What is this feeling? But the most important thing, and it's bold, be kind to yourself. You don't have to be perfect. That was the greatest gift of self-care that I gave myself, was like, Jermaine, you don't have to be perfect. You can make a mistake. You can fall down. It's okay. And just understanding that you have heard this adage maybe before, that it's okay to not be okay. And the other two words that's added after that is have hope, right? Just have hope. Don't lose hope. And for those of us who have friends who maybe have lost hope, let's be the hope for them. Let's be the hope for them. So in the last 7 minutes, because I want to leave 2 minutes for Q&A if you all have questions, this is a model I developed. And it is 5 steps to help yourself. But this is not only helping yourself, but it's also steps that you can share with others to help themselves. Before I do that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Susan, you have your hand up. Talk to me.
Yes, so I have dealt with depression on and off my whole life. It's manageable. It's, you know, it's fine. But the piece, so I wrote the being creative part, and I have found myself to be, through my life, very self-critical, that I'm like, oh, you know, you start one thing, but you don't finish it and you move on to something else. And I viewed that over time as not being able to sustain something and not being able to commit or sustain something. And then I had this reframe that no, it's not about sustaining. And I started looking at it from the place of, no, you're curious and you continually look for things to that are new, that you may hang on to, you may continue, or you may not, but I've exposed myself to something new and different and creative. And that just made a big shift for me to not be on the self-critical side, but to be, you know, and I've said that in talking with folks, I've said, you know, that have said the same thing. Oh, I just start something, I never finish, blah, blah, blah. And I have found it's really helpful to reframe that for others, because we don't necessarily think about that.
When I say this and about David and about Susan, I genuinely mean it. I want to thank you for your bravery in sharing your stories, because oftentimes sharing our stories in public forums is the hardest thing sometimes, because it's like, uh-oh, I just told somebody I experienced depression. What will they think about me? You know, and the reality is the same was true with cancer, right? You didn't tell folks you had cancer back in the 80s and 90s. You didn't tell people that because it was misunderstood. In the 80s, the HIV epidemic, right? You didn't talk about HIV in public. And mental health is that next thing in the 21st century. We have to take it down, the stigma, and be able to have those conversations like, yep, I see a therapist, you know, and it's not one of those kind of cool things like, I have a therapist. It's not that kind of cool thing there, right? It's really saying, yeah, when I have struggles, I talk to somebody about that, and it's okay. So David, Susan, thank you so much for sharing your stories. That's the beginning of making Mental Health Awareness Month of May being every month is mental health awareness. And that's to me, the importance. Let me share just real quick those 5 steps that I created here. And this was featured in a magazine called Faith and Fitness. But 5 steps to help yourself. And the first one is share what you're experiencing with those who care. The second one is tell the truth. The third step is empty the trash bin. The 4th step is pause for self-care. And the 5th step is seek assistance. So these are 5 steps to help yourself as well as to help someone else. And so when we talk about, you know, sharing your experience, this begins with you learning to recognize what might be typical behaviors, feelings, or reactions, and what might be a challenge to your mental well-being. So be able to define with like, Susan said, sometimes I feel depressed. So like, I recognize that feeling. Okay, this is what this is. And this is maybe a full in that moment, or wait a minute, this is more challenging here in this moment. So I have tools in my toolbox that helps me manage when it's just feeling blue and when it's more than feeling blue. That's important. But sharing that with somebody who cares is really important. Having a support system, like you have like 2-3 people. I have a best friend that knows my deepest secrets. And I could just like tell him everything. And when I tell him it's in a vault, and I know he will not tell anybody, it's in a vault, it's there. And so having some people in your life that you can share your experience with is so important. And so that's the first step. But then telling those friends like the truth is really important. So learning how to be open and honest about what you're experiencing. I think the thing is like, well, if I tell them that, what they think about me, and getting past that fear and that anxiety of what people think about you is really important to your healing. Because if you're not open and honest about what you're really experiencing, I can't help you. So I tell my loved ones, my friends with mental health challenges, like, I don't care. Don't call me only when things are great. Call me in the ugly moments. Call me in the bad moments. Call me when you've jacked up royally. I don't care. Call me and be like, you know what? I just messed this one up. I'm here to listen non-judgmentally. I'm here to hear what's going on and meet you where you are. And this is the hardest thing because our brains are like computers. So like there's this little trash can on your computer and all the files go in there, but unless you empty it, it's still in that trash can. The hard thing about it though, is that our brains are not like that, like a computer. Like once you delete it, like it just no longer in the trash can, it's in the recesses of our mind. It's in our unconscious sometimes. And so that's like the hard drive of the computer. Even if you delete the file from the trash can, it's still embedded in the hard drive. It's still there. You just can't access it as readily. You have to go deeper in to find it. And the same is true with our brains. Like there's certain traumas, things that we experience, and we thought we forgot about it, and we thought we dealt with it. And then something comes up and reminds you of it, and it researches to the top, like, I thought I had deleted that. I thought I had got rid of that. Nope, it's still there in the recesses. So learning how to avoid, allow negative things and people to stick around in your mind, it's a lesson. It's a journey. But it's like trying to figure out, how do I get rid of the clutter in my life? And I don't know what it is, but there's always clutter around me. And I'm like, how did this get so cluttered again? I just cleaned this up. What just happened here? But it's because you move from one thing to another thing to another thing. You open this up, you do this right here. And so, those of you who are like, nope, it needs to be neat, it needs to be straight, so forth. I don't fall in that category. I try, but clutter follows me, it feels like. So I'm always moving clutter. I'm always trying to straighten up things. And so it's a process. Be kind to yourself. You don't have to be perfect. The other one is pause for self-care. And so know that self-care is an act of self-love. I love that quote. It's not being selfish. It's not being self-centered. Self-care is an act of self-love. So learn how to do something nice for yourself that allows you to relax and release. So I'm buying my subscription to AMC Theater so I can get 3 movies a week. That's my self-care, 3 movies a week. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it all signed up, get my 3 movies in, and that's my self-care. And when I go to the movie, I turn my phone off, I go to movies. I just enjoy the movie. My last movie, Doctor Strange, was a good movie. I liked it, good movie. Last slide, seek some assistance. This is where Mental Health America comes in. Know what your local resources are. Don't reinvent the wheel. We have the Mental Health Fund that funds a lot of resources around Jackson County. So getting a list of all those providers there is important. So know your local resources. Know who to call in a crisis. Know who to call in non-crisis. I'm not sure where we are in Missouri with 988, but I'm sure it's coming soon. And 988 will be that alternative that connected to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, as well as other crisis lines. So, but 211 still is in Missouri, right? 211, so most definitely still hit 211. So most definitely know your local resources. All righty. So here are ways to connect with us at Live and Well. You can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. You can go to our website. We even have podcasts on iTunes. So most definitely, please stay connected with us. And we are really excited about these learning experiences that we're offering each month to connect with you as a community. And soon we'll be talking about our technical assistance and our trainer program that's gonna be coming out hopefully in the fall. So we're excited about that work as our steering committee. We encourage you to maybe be an ambassador. If you're not already an ambassador with Alive and Well, become an ambassador. If you want to be a part of our steering committee, most definitely feel free to join our steering committee. And I'm going to ask Micah one more time if he could put in that link to our June registration link for our upcoming learning experience in June. We'll get that date out, the topic out to you soon. But are there any questions that we can answer from Stacy or myself? Feel free to put those in the chat feed. Thank you, Micah. And if you don't have any questions, I'm gonna give you back the gift of time, which is a wonderful gift. Give you back 6 whole minutes. All righty. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and joining us. I will chat with y'all later. See you.
Dr. Manning, if you could send out that link, because I've clicked on it twice and it takes you to the general Zoom page.
Okay.
It does not take you to the Alive and Well sign up.
Okay, Micah, if we can get the right link in there, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I had the same problem.
Thank you, Rhonda, for your comment.
Yeah, that can be a follow-up, but the link that we're getting is not taking us to Alive and Well, it's taking us to a general Zoom page.
Okay, we will get that
Thank you
fixed.
so much for today.
We'll get it out to everybody. All right, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.